Mic check. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. It's Wednesday, April 22nd. It's 5:31 p.m. and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll start school committee introductions with Counselor Harriman.
Scott Harriman, City Council Representative to the School Committee.
Donna Gallant, Ward 7.
Megan Hurd, Ward 6.
Linnea Hawkins, Ward 5.
Julia Harper, Ward 4. Elizabeth Eames, Ward 3.
Luke Jensen at large.
Phoenix McLaughlin, Ward 1.
Jake Langlis, Superintendent.
Karen Paquette, Assistant Superintendent.
And Member Bowden is out sick this evening, unfortunately. So next on the agenda is public input. So members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now and on agenda items later. And the budget is an agenda item, so public comment for that will be taken later. Speakers must adhere to our public comment policy, BEDH, which is available in the back of the room or on the LPS website. These meetings exist to conduct school committee business. The purpose of public comment is to share thoughts on school and educational matters. Committee members and school staff will not reply during this time. Comments must be directed to the chair and be civil. By law, comments may not pertain to specific staff or students. Comments about individuals must be directed privately to the appropriate LPS staff. Student privacy must be maintained. The public comment period is 30 minutes unless extended due to unusual circumstances. Priority goes to Lewiston residents and parents, students, or employees of LPS. Before starting, please state your name, town or city of residence, and affiliation to LPS. Is there anyone who would like to give public comment on non-agenda items at this time? Okay. Seeing none, we will move to agenda item number 4, which is to review and potentially vote on the fiscal year 2027 budget. Would you like to start us off, Superintendent?
Sure. I have a couple of different variations to show you. So we shared a memo that walked through the adjustments, but I also wanted to share this view because we had looked at it last time. And so some of the information here might not be as pertinent, but it could lead to different discussion. So we did on this sheet, if you can recall, we broke this down by categories. And the categories weren't perfect, but it was a building block for the discussion. And so what we did is, this is essentially the sheet that you had prior, but the things that are crossed off are removed. And so you can see the Gen Ed social worker Montello, the Dean of Students Montello, those are pulled out. The items that are still there in the reductions list would actually be reduced. And then the next area down, you have the additions. And this was with the counselor roles, the ease positions put back in or brought into the budget because that grant's going to sunset. And the student support specialist folks that are going to help out with some things day to day. You can see here the reductions for the technology coach. And then there was the reduction in district clinical supervisor. And as we work through the different adjustments, you can see the additions as well. 1 second here. There we go. This is the administrative section, this part up top, and you can see, and then one of the requests from the school committee was, can you find 100 to 200,000 additional more dollars? In the prior proposal, we had talked about reducing one of the literacy specialists and making that a multi-tiered systems of support specialist. And that reduction, if we do not fill that role, is 113,556. So that gets us into that range, at least that was requested. So that is one item that will look different when you look at the sheet, if you look at the last sheet. We have that one addition to continue with the innovation effort. In the vacant positions, you can see reduced. And then I think a more confusing area, and I know you've had some time look at this, but just to walk through it, in the area of library, you see everything pulled out, which is a somewhat messed up way of saying it all stays the same. And so by not removing those two librarians, you also do not need to add those other two positions. And so the reductions are removed, so they stay whole, and the additions would not be needed. And this is that reconciling based on the input from the committee. You can also see that the some coach reductions, but not the multilingual. And then towards the bottom here, you have the ed techs and duty aid positions. And then the human resource specialist, again, still as a reduction. And so that was just one view that was similar to something you saw before. And we also have any questions on that, or is it okay to go to the memo? Seeing them? Just give me 1 second. And so in the memo, I had shared that, again, it's our hope that we get to a vote sooner than later. We're starting to run out of time around the votes. We still have some time for adjustments. But based on the information from last Wednesday's meeting, this builds out by table what reductions. And so in table one, this was the top of the last document that we discussed. This has the corrections, the adjustment for insurance, now that we know the number, and that state bridge supplemental amount that last week I had shared as this is what I project it will be. We did get confirmation that unless there's some kind of shift in appropriations, that's what that number will be. So we're safe to budget around that. And again, this is $1.8 million through the work that whether it's corrections or actuals that got cleaned up. But that's also $1.8 million worth of funds that the committee is obviously aware of, but made hard decisions in other areas and didn't just decide to spend. In table two, this represents the position reductions that the school committee, again, through tough decisions and input, this represents 2.2 million in total staff reductions. My recommendation, not that it's easy, but through the hard work that you've done and some things we've been able to identify, I would recommend approving these reductions, as hard as that is to say. But you've also made some other provisions, which I will share after this listing. There's nothing new on here. It does have your costs, but these are all items that we've been discussing for a few weeks. And you can see the total of 2.209. So if you add that 2.2 to the 1.8, you start talking about $4 million roughly of decisions that have been pretty tough, but that are out there if you adopt it. Table 3, this is, I call it a combination of putting back because as you know, some things are in your binder, some things were discussions that weren't, but I just wanted you to have a holistic view. So these would be the items that you, by way of straw poll, not a final decision, not a vote, had decided to keep, if you will. So here's where you have the social worker, the dean of students, the 2 librarians, multilingual coach, and the 2 social work positions that are connected to the EASE grant funding. And that total is $542,000. So as a note, some of the things that you may not see in here, but again, full transparency and making sure it's all known. things like this, the student support specialist or that dean-like role that we've discussed kind of at length, they're not on that list from a budget perspective because they're in your binder already, because that was part of the initial proposal. So that's where it can get confusing with what's in and what potentially might not be. But I wanted to make note of that in writing so people could see that. These adjustments obviously paired with the things that I had presented prior lands the budget at a $2.5 million increase on the local, request. And that's a percentage increase of 8.06% on the local cost. And the total local cost is 34,054,176 in this particular version. And if you were to vote tonight, the recommended motion would be for the full amount, which is $129,710,257. And I put at the bottom of the memo a series of steps that we still have before us. Tomorrow afternoon and early evening, Karen and I are going to be around if people want to just stop and ask questions. It can be about budget, it can be about anything. We'll be at Dingley from 2 to 6 p.m. On the 5th, which is just after the break, 1 week later, the city council will present to them. We do have a meeting on the 27th, but between now and then, next Monday. So if there's more work that needs to be done, it can be discussed around the budget on Monday, the 27th. The 5th, hopefully the city will adopt what the school committee has suggested. And then on May 7th, we do a town hall. And on the 12th is the referendum. And we would just advise as many people as possible to get out and cast your vote.
Okay, so at this point, what I'd suggest is if anyone has any questions for the superintendent, we can do that just in terms of what he just shared. I did ask if Councilor Harriman could share a little bit about what the city council has discussed since we last met. And then we can have time for just general committee discussion and then time for public comment and then see if we are ready for a vote this evening. So any questions for the superintendent based on what he shared so far? Okay. Councilor Harriman, would you mind giving us an update?
Sure. So the city council met last night. We had a budget workshop before the meeting. And there seems to be consensus on the council to delay the revaluation, the implementation of it for at least a year. One thing I learned through this is that the elected officials actually aren't charged with making that decision. Under state law, the chief assessor is the one who decides that, but it's sort of some teamwork going on here. It does seem like a majority of the council wants to push that off till next year. That would mean that people are still going to receive their new valuation in the mail. Those letters are supposed to go out in the next week or so, but the new tax rate wouldn't take effect for this fiscal year. So it looks like the mill rate would go, instead of going from 32.78, I think is what it is, with a new valuation, it would drop to something like $17. It looks like its valuations are going to stay, the current ones are going to stay in effect, and the mill rate will go up to around $35, $36 is what it's looking like right now. We also discussed the city budget, and it seems like at the last meeting, there was a majority who were in favor of the tier 3 proposal from the city administrator, which cut about 8 positions. It seems like that may have flipped back to not being in favor of that. And so we're still going through the budget, looking at ways to potentially cut at the city side. That's about all I have for updates, unless there are any questions.
Member Hurd?
So what's the reasoning behind delaying the reevaluation? Like, taxpayers are still going to have to pay that money at some point. So what's the point of delaying it a year?
The thought is that it gives people more time to prepare, basically, because if the new values went into effect, they would go into effect this fall. So the bills that would be sent out in August to come due in September, and if you're if you're just getting your new valuation next week or the week after, that only gives you a few months to prepare your household budget and everything for this potential significant increase in your taxes. So the thought is that, yes, people will still have to pay that amount, but they'll have more time to prepare and sort of, not to shock them with a potential large budget increase with only a few months' notice.
So I'm going to be honest. It's an election year, so it sounds like the city's trying to buy votes, honestly, is what it sounds like. Because it doesn't matter if we push it a year or 2 years, people aren't just going to magically come on this money or be able to save this money to afford their taxes. And so I don't really understand the thought behind it, but again, I'm not on the city council. But I am wondering, I didn't get a chance to watch the whole meeting, but I know I saw a couple things online of people, just like snippets of what was going on. And I think one or more of the counselors had asked about the school committee using more of our fund balance to lower our ask for the taxpayers. And I just didn't know if that was communicated to them proper, or if you had shared with them like how that works, or if they understand how that works and like what we're thinking, like going forward, forecasting out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I did mention that. And I guess first I'll say that we have staggered terms now. So every year is an election year for half of us. But I did mention it, and I just sent a follow-up email to the council this afternoon because someone corrected me that I had said that we were using 5 million out of the 10 million in fund balance that we had. We're actually using about 3.5 million out of about 7 million. But I did mention that this year we're using 3.5. Last year we used about 3.5, and the 4 years before that, we used at least 5 million each of those 4 years, and that our fund balance is really depleting on the school side. It's not being replenished like sometimes it does with vacant positions and things because we've eliminated so many of those vacant positions. The city budget proposes not using any of the city's fund balance, which is around 19 million, which I don't totally agree with. I know we do have to, I believe it's an ordinance, we have to keep our fund balance within 8 to 12% of I believe it's the municipal revenues, and we're currently right about at 10%. So we could use some of it and bring it down to closer to 8. But that's where we're at right now. I did mention to the council that we are using a significant portion of our fund balance as we have for several years and can't really afford to use more.
Member Glenn, I saw your hand next.
So my question is, they're going to put off the new taxes for a year. Is that being deferred, or will they have to pay that year and the following year together? Or how are they going to work that?
No, it would just be a delay. So this upcoming year, you'd still be paying the same rate that you're paying now. It would just be delayed. You just have that advance notice that next, I guess it would be August or September of 2027. That's when it would come into effect.
So they wouldn't try to recoup the previous year. Okay, thank you.
The same total amount of taxes will be raised regardless. It's just the distribution across the different property taxpayers. I do want to note, we did discuss this at prior meetings, and one advantage for our process at least is that we will know at the start of our budget process what the valuations are like, which we did not have that advantage this time, which I personally found frustrating. Member Reams, I saw your hand.
Last night, I saw that the city council retreated from firing, cutting any of their own positions. They've gone back to resisting entirely getting rid of anybody, whereas we've got like 30 plus people on the line. So I just want, I'm hoping that you can bring back to them the message that we're very frustrated about that. Thank you.
Member Harper.
Thank you. Yeah, I am among the people that was advocating to our assessor, Mr. Healy, and to the city council to delay or phase in the reval for purposes of, I mean, you're absolutely right. Remember, heard about, the challenge of coming up with additional money a year later. But just thinking about how some folks miss the opportunity to apply for the homestead exemption. There, just the opportunity to like financially like plan and to digest. So, I am very hopeful that the city council will at a minimum delay for a year and yeah, consider just lots of community engagement and lots of community outreach, lots of opportunities for people to understand what their options are and it, particularly for folks on fixed incomes and low income folks. So yeah, I just wanted to say that piece. And also I really hope that whatever the decision is, it can happen prior to May 12th. Actually prior to May 6th, because you can vote in person at City Hall on May 6th and May 7th from 7:45 to 4 p.m. is the hours of City Hall. And so it's, just so that people have an understanding of whether or not this is happening this year, is it next year, is like, what is going to be the impact so that they can, just have that understanding prior to voting on or deciding how much funding we're going to have for our schools. So I wanted to say that. And then we were also talking about I think that's all I wanted to say about the reval. Thank you.
Back to Member Eames.
I just wanted to reiterate what you said, Chair, about it's revenue neutral if they delay it for a year, but the distribution shifts drastically ultimately. So I think it shifts from businesses to homeowners, as far as I understand it, and those whose valuation has gone way up will be paying more in taxes than they are used to. So giving people a year's notice, I think, is actually the kind thing to do, given everything. It's revenue neutral this year, but it's not distributed the same as it will be.
Councilor Harriman and then Member.
Yes, and I also wanted to add that I and some others had asked about phasing in the new value over, say, 3 years. And it sounds like that would be technically very difficult to do for staff to do. So they greatly preferred either implementing it now or just a delay and not a phase in, because that would be really difficult to keep track of the different values.
Member Hurd.
Thank you. So this isn't actually a question for you, Scott, but sorry, Jake, I'm going to put you on the spot for a second. But like, what is your plan like if we approve this tonight, what is your plan? How are you going to go to city council and sit there and convince them when their estimated current budget is an 11% increase and ours is only 8? They don't want to cut any positions and we're cutting 30. They don't want to use any fund balance, but we're already using 3 and they want us to use more. So like how, what magic words are you going to sit there and to convince the city council to approve our budget? Because it sounds like, I mean, they could say no, and then we're going to have to be back here. And then what are our options?
I mean, I think it's really just sharing the facts of the budget. I don't speak for the council, obviously. They'll have their opportunity to provide input. I do think it's important to remind everyone listening, watching, that the city council can approve or not approve the amount before them. They can provide input on the constructs of the budget, but ultimately the school committee makes the decisions on what is in the budget. So I think that's an important note. But I think it'll be beneficial to be available to answer those kinds of questions. When we think of the constructs of our fund balance, Right now, we have a 2-year window, and we have some funds that people refer to 10 million. It's not actually 10 in that sense. We have $3 million for facilities reserve that is specifically designed for facility improvements of certain kinds that has been approved at the school committee level, at the city council level, and in referendum. So we can't actually just go grab that money and use it for something different. It has specific rules around it. If we use more fund balance this year, then we'll have a hole next year. And so we don't have carryover from vacant positions or COVID dollars. So we're just in a point where I think we're intentionally trying to multi-year budget with the little bit that's left so that we don't create a different hole for taxpayers next year or the year following. So,
I might just say that is the awkwardness sometimes of the fact that we're not an independent school board. We are a committee of the city council, despite having, our own elections. And I would agree. I think the superintendent's role is just to present the facts of the budget, but perhaps the rest of us can make some other suggestions to the city council, depending on our feelings about it. But that's not our role right now, anyways, for this evening. But certainly is a difficult overall budget process this year, I would say. Any other either questions for Councilor Hermans or comments on those particular issues before we get to our own budget proposal? Okay. So yeah, I think at this time, the superintendent did write up what we discussed last time and put forward the suggested action for this evening, which I would also suggest that we try to take this evening. So are there, any just general comments, questions, thoughts from the school committee? Yes, Member Hurd and then Member Gwinnett.
So I'm hoping as we go forward with the budget, I don't know if it's possible, and we had talked about this prior, and I think our last meeting, we kind of dived into it a little bit more, but I feel like within each of our elementary schools, there's a bunch of different positions that maybe do the same things, but they're different names, or they're named something, but they're not actually doing the same thing. And so, especially at the last meeting, I feel like I got super confused about like what school had what and who didn't have what. And so I don't know if it's possible going forward, but to maybe streamline, I don't know if it's like the way positions are named, or I just feel like for me personally, it would be a lot easier for me to understand kind of who has what, who doesn't, like when we're looking at all of those things. So I don't know if that's like a this year thing or a next year thing, but I feel like for me, especially, that would be like super helpful going forward.
yeah, I think we can do that. And this budget does some of it. I think it's mindful of the level of need in different schools. But we do have these kind of grant hangover-like positions that are called as something, but they don't actually do that day to day, and it could vary building to building. So we are also hopeful to get that more and more cleaned up.
Member Glant, I saw your hand next.
Just a note that I have received some positive responses on the Montello decisions that we made last week, that constituents are enthused and happy about keeping the positions with Montello as it was needed. So I just wanted to pass that on.
Well, maybe I'll ask the committee members more directly. Are members feeling supportive of the motion that has been suggested? Sorry, there is no motion on the table yet, but the superintendent did discuss the makeup of a potential motion. And again, I think we'll wait and see if there's public comment, but I just want to, make sure that we're kind of clearing the air of any lingering questions, thoughts, differences of opinion, and so on. So Member Hawkins and then Councilor Herman.
I just wanted to say really quickly, I appreciate how the job that Jake and his team have done to keep up with all these changes. We keep lobbing at him. And his team, you've done a really good job, I think, at keeping up with what we're asking for versus what we're seeing versus what we want to come out of it. I don't love it, but I don't want to scream about it either. So that is good.
Councilor Herman.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I personally don't agree with the budget as is. I don't want to cut any of those filled positions and many of the unfilled ones. But I do realize I'm one person on a committee of 9, and we went through that process, and it works as a consensus of the committee members. So yeah, I just wanted to say that I would like to see most of those positions back in the budget, but it sounds like that is not going to happen.
Member Eames.
Ditto, I am very reluctantly willing to swallow this proposal that we've come to as a group, but it's with my arm tied behind my back because I really, really don't want to cut any positions whatsoever. But I understand the realities of the situation and the referendum coming. And so I would reluctantly support this if everyone else does, but so I'm not going to stand outside consensus and refuse, but I do want to go down kicking and screaming about how I really hate the cuts.
So would the committee be amenable to opening up for public comment at this time? Okay. So if there are any members of the public who wish to speak on this agenda item, which is the potential vote on the fiscal year 2027 budget, now would be the time. The rules that I did relay earlier would still apply. Is there anyone who would like to give public comment at this time? Okay, I am seeing none, so back to the committee for further discussion and/or a motion. Member Denton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of been waiting all budget season, I guess exactly for this moment to share all of my thoughts. I'm going to try not to beat a dead horse in anything I've talked about extensively already. So I'll try to move past those things quickly. And bear with me for just a couple of minutes here, please. So I guess the one thing I really want to emphasize, and that it's not always clear to the public, is why we're in the position that we're in with this budget. It's not due to mismanagement. It's due entirely to factors outside of the city's control and our district's control here. It's really tied to Lewiston's limited tax base problems. It's tied behind the way that the state funds education. It's tied to our ability to, grow our local tax base. And you look at the history of Lewiston, we kind of romanticize the mills, but they were hardworking jobs for very low pay, and people tended to not really get ahead too much work in those. Just looking at Lewiston now, it's just, the story is kind of the same, where it seems to be like an extraction of wealth in the city by corporations, by some nonprofits, not all, but some. And honestly, by some city employees that make a high salary and don't even live in Lewiston, quite frankly. So, I have very, very, very strong feelings about some of our state leaders, particularly the governor, senators, people like Mills, Collins, people who will come here when there's national media here in the event of a tragedy, but completely abandon us the moment that we actually need help, and will abandon us and the ability to help our students in the district here. So I lose my mind every time I hear people cheer about the 55% of school funding, being 55% of the state, that number. It's an arbitrary number. 55% of what? Every school district is a little bit different. Every school district has different needs. So it's extremely harmful to say that we're fully funding the state's education when we're not. When we're only funding 2 new school projects, building projects in a year, when the need is so much higher, we're not fully funding state education. You'd have to be out of your mind to think that. So I think it's extremely harmful when we have these state leaders going around telling people that education is fully funded when it's absolutely not. Looking at the federal level too, if the IDEA was fully funded at the federal level, we would not be in this budget position that we're in as a city, just flat out. If the state fully funded the mandates that they put down on districts, we would not be in this budget position, flat out. Property taxes would not be nearly as high as they are in Lewiston. And a lot of that has to do, especially around special education costs. Considering the demands that are put on Lewiston, our special education team does an incredible job, a miraculous job. It's wonderful. I couldn't say enough good things about our special education workers from the bottom to the top in our district here. I get frustrated by things like the DOJ mandate, where they put other mandates on us, mandates on the district and say we need to do certain things, but don't actually give us the money to do those things when we don't have the money here locally. I get really frustrated that there are a lot of wealthy communities in Maine that push their problems into service center communities, knowing that it lowers their property taxes. And then we just have to make up the difference because once they leave their communities, they're no longer a Maine problem. They're a Lewiston problem, or an Auburn problem, an Augusta, a Portland, a Bangor problem. So our taxes are high in Lewiston because we're subsidizing wealthy communities. And a lot of the representatives from those communities tend to dominate state politics of both parties. So that to me is just absolutely morally egregious. And it's something we really need to look at the state level. Are we going to have a statewide property tax to better fund education? I don't agree with just shifting around money in a broken system because the system is broken. You can shift around as much money as you want. It's never going to be enough. The system's always going to have flaws and it's always going to be broken. And it's always going to be our students and staff members that suffer. So, I mean, we talk about property tax relief. Our taxpayers suffer, but for our role here overseeing the district, our students and our staff members suffer. And it's just absolutely not fair to them. You know, a kid's future success shouldn't be dependent on their zip code, yet nationally it is. So it's kind of more of a rant there. I guess as it relates to this kind of local budget here, again, it's not tied to mismanagement. I'm very happy with the way we manage things here in the city at the school level here. I can get behind this budget amount. Honestly, it's not exactly how I would set it up, but it is an amount that I can get behind. I've talked to a lot of people, had many conversations since the last meeting, the workshop that we had. I've gotten to a place where I can be comfortable with the amount, even if it's not exactly how I would set it up. I do very much appreciate the importance we've placed on student supports. I think something that's very often overlooked by people that don't necessarily work in a classroom on a daily basis is we tend to think of like behavior issues causing like a lot of extra work. And you do have that kind of whack-a-mole scenario where behavior stuff does come up. But honestly, it's not so much about dealing with the behaviors as they come up, so much as teaching is a job where you have to regulate the nervous systems of 15 to 20 students every single day. And even the well-behaved students that come from good families whose parents are doing everything right, it's still a different kind of school environment than we went to when we were as kids. Some awful things that I don't want to really bring up here at this meeting, but things that are in the back of kids' minds just as they are on the back of every staff member's minds. So the school environment is much, much different than it used to be. And regulating the nervous system of students is extremely important. And it's a very, very emotionally taxing thing to do. Ideally, classrooms should have maybe 10 students at every grade and elementary level. That would be more manageable based on the workload that teachers actually have to do. But again, we're nowhere near as a society funding education at that level. So people are just doing the best they can. But so when we talk about the importance of student supports and keeping them in and making sure that we find a system that works, I'm extremely happy and appreciative of you guys here on the board and us making sure that is a priority. And I think that's something we tackled and going forward is something I can absolutely live with. Some of the changes, like I said, I don't necessarily agree with. Some of them yet to be seen, and I'm hoping I'm wrong. I've been wrong many, many times before. I'm hoping I'm wrong on this again. Some of them just kind of feel like reverse Moneyball, where maybe we've lost a first baseman and catcher and replaced them with two outfield sluggers, and we still have the need, for the infield defense. But again, I'll do what I can on the school committee, as I'm sure we all will, to make sure that we keep those supports going and don't lose momentum that we've made, particularly over the last year in a lot of places. Again, I won't beat a dead horse too much here. I just feel like in a lot of ways, we kind of take a passive approach here as a school committee in a lot of different ways, including the budget. And I mean passiveness, not passivity, as if it's a choice. I just feel like there's a different way that we can maybe reinvigorate our culture here. Maybe it's time for a retreat where we can really just decide how we're going to move going forward. And I think our goals and priorities this session is really going to help with that. I think we are putting too much on the superintendent and administration, and we do kind of need to step up, I guess, kind of how we operate a bit here. I am appreciative of what we're able to keep, particularly the librarian positions. I'm appreciative of a lot of the compromises that were made here on the board, as difficult as they were. I'm appreciative of the difficult work done by the superintendent and the administrative team. It's personal for us, and it does eat at us too, but I know it's much, much more personal for the district employees. So people have worked together for a very long time and see the impact on a day-to-day basis. And I mean, it's not just hard work, it's heartbreaking work. It absolutely digs at your soul. I did mention at a previous meeting that it does feel like we're not going to be able to maintain the safety, support for students, and push for the academic progress that we want to see as a city. I do feel that was one of the trade-offs here, the academic progress, but I am optimistic that if we approach the goals and priorities discussion in a way, I do see a lot of ways that we can improve academic learning in the district that doesn't come with a price tag. And so I'm really, really hopeful we can tackle that here soon and that we can have a good, open conversation and really hone in on the frontline experts who are, seeing our students on a daily basis and hearing what they have to say and making sure we all do our research in that regard. So I am still optimistic about that. And I do see some ways that we can to make some improvements there. So I just want to point out again how important the goals and priorities conversation is going to be for us. And I mean, having worked in the district last year, it's just really difficult to vote to cut positions that for staff members that literally helped improve my teaching last year and not only made me a better teacher, but helped my students become better students and absolutely did have an impact. I don't think any of the positions we cut were fat. Every single one of them helped our students and staff in one way or another. Like I've said before, we didn't have any fat to cut. We're just deciding which limbs we want to cut off here. So again, this is just not an easy decision for us. I do think the communication campaign is going to be critical. I do think it's a responsibility of the school committee as much as I do appreciate the administration and our superintendent stepping up to do what he can to get as much information out as possible. The onus really is on us to make sure the community knows why we're in the position we're in, what the impact is going to be, what we've decided, and to make sure that we as a group own the decision we're making. The superintendent can make any recommendations he wants, but when we vote tonight, this is our vote. We do not have a moral right to then put it off on anyone else. It is on us until the day that we die. So I just want to make sure that we approach the communication campaign. We're making sure that that's clear too. The school district doesn't have a communications department. That's really us. We need to be the conduits between us and the city and own the rough decisions that we make here. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that, I'm just kind of jumping on the piggyback and what a few of these guys said already, my colleagues here, but I am very, very frustrated by the city, not particularly looking at positions. From what I'm understanding is not really listening to the city councilors on certain ways that they would like to approach the budget as well. I know that they're kind of limited, but me being on the school committee, I'm not. I don't think that city staff is very much listening to the city councilors on some of the things they want to approach as far as the budget goes. And I really hope that that can change. The honest truth is that most, if not all of our classroom teachers have a harder job than several city staff employees that are making a six-figure salary. And a lot of our teachers starting out are making in the low 40s before taxes come out. And that's just morally wrong. So whatever we can do to support the city council to make some changes on the city side, I think is important. We shouldn't be having to look at cutting nearly 30 positions that shouldn't even be on the chopping block. Again, it's not fat, when I absolutely do see fat on the city side in ways that could be cut. So I don't really know how to tackle that issue whatsoever, but I'm sure I'll be at the next city council meeting speaking out about that. So I say all that to say I will be voting for the budget tonight. Took a while to get here. This is not an easy thing. I'm very much worried about next year and hoping that things can be different. But I know that if we just continue the same system and just try to shift money around, nothing's ever going to get any better. We're just going to be managing disaster year after year. Just as when I tackled the budget my first year in 2017, and it's just gotten harder and harder every single time. With COVID funding just putting off the challenges for a few years, but things are not going to get any better for Lewiston unless we make some systematic change in Maine. So I'll end what I'm rambling on about by making a motion to approve the school budget as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, I saw a member glance hand first. So the motion, correct me if I'm wrong about your motion, but it would be to approve the school committee version of the fiscal year 2027 budget of $129,710,257, and that the superintendent prepare the warrant articles for referendum. So that was moved by member Jensen, seconded by member Gallant. Is there any further comments, discussions, questions, anything from the committee? Okay, just share my own opinion at this point, so I haven't done so yet. I will be supporting the motion. I think, I won't repeat what so many others have said. It's been a difficult process. It's not the type of thing that anyone joins the committee to do, to have to reduce positions from, a hardworking district. But unfortunately, the financial position that we are in is not an easy one. And there are a lot of larger challenges with that manifest in our budget process and that um, result in this type of situation. But at the end of the day, we do need to approve a responsible budget that taxpayers can support, and I hope they will on May 12th, as well as the early voting, May 6th and 7th. So I will be supporting the motion. I think it's the right thing to do, and I hope that the school will continue stronger. So I will be supporting it. Any last comments before we get to a vote? Yes, Member Harper.
Thank you. Yeah, I just also wanted to not reiterate what other people said, but that um, this has been, yeah, incredibly difficult. I am also will be supporting the motion. I am glad that I feel like the committee was able to come together and preserve what I think to be pretty essential supports in our schools. And I also just want to say that I am grateful to our legislators for approving the bridge funding this year, which was about $500,000. And the legislature also approved a change in the funding model for schools, which gives additional funding for students. I think there was a bunch of changes, but one of the major ones is for economically disadvantaged students, increasing that, which hasn't changed in like 20 years. So that's going to be a help to us next year. I understand. So I think that is a light for next year. And also, yeah, I want to thank everyone who has given us feedback on this process. It's definitely been really helpful, especially for me as a new member, to just understand people's experiences in the schools and as taxpayers and what their priorities are. That's been incredibly helpful. And also, I know that historically our school budget has been difficult to pass, and it always comes down to just a few votes. And I, recognize that this is an incredibly challenging year for Lewiston, in particular with the revaluation. And I hope the public is able to recognize how much work has gone into reducing this budget and reducing positions, but also maintaining what I hope will be strong supports for our schools, and to think about the implications of, if our students are the ones who have to who are our future, are the ones who have to bear the burden of further reductions, then that's going to just sort of, it's like, do we want to pay now or do we want to pay later? Because we'll end up paying for folks who didn't get what they needed when they were in school down the road. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I also really hope that folks are reaching out to their city councilors as well about, if you have questions and urgings about the revaluation, also to our assessor, Bill Healy, because that is all also really, their budget process is also still ongoing and will be for maybe the next month. So it's important to, there's still opportunity there to advocate for what you would like to see as far as the city budget and the revaluation. So that is what I wanted to say. And yeah, I will be supporting the motion.
Okay. Any other comments, or are we ready for the vote? Okay, so I'll ask the superintendent to call the roll. I know it's been a while since we have had an actual roll call vote. I believe Member Harper is who we will start with this time.
I believe it is Member Harper. Ward 4,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
uh, at large,
Yes.
2, 1. Chance to, sorry. Ward 1,
Yes.
Councilor Herman.
Reluctantly, yes.
Ward 7,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
and Ward 5.
Yes.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes that agenda item. And just to reiterate, the city council will be voting on the school budget on May 5th. There'll be a town hall May 7th, and the referendum day is May 12th. And that's in addition to tomorrow, the superintendent and assistant superintendent having what are you calling it? Coffee with the superintendent between office hours, yeah, between 2 and 6 p.m. at the Dinley building. So still more time for input, and please do get out to vote. So with that, I'll move on to agenda item number 5, report from school committee chair. So just a quick thing, we are having our regular meeting on Monday. But one thing I wanted to mention to you now is one thing I did mention to the superintendent for us to look at is our meeting schedule for the remainder of the school year and summer. So Member Jensen was correct that we only had one regular business meeting scheduled in May. The other meeting is that town hall, which obviously is not a business meeting. So I do think for a variety of reasons, it would be helpful to get one more on the books. And the reason I'm mentioning that to you all now is just if you could check your calendars beforehand and looking at it would likely have to be somewhere in the week of May 18th. So I just want to mention that, again, we have a regular meeting coming right up, so I'll leave my report there. The next agenda item is report from the school superintendent. Is there anything you'd like to add?
The one big one with the meeting Monday I had was just to look at your calendars, and I'll send something out, but May 18th might be a date that works because the following weekend is a holiday.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Member Heard?
We just have a facilities subcommittee meeting on the 18th, so we'd have to either reschedule or have it before.
Okay, thank you. Report from the city council rep. Councilor Hammer, is there anything else you'd like to add at this time?
I don't have anything else right now. Thanks.
Okay, we do have agenda item number 8, which is updates from school committee subcommittees. I'm not sure if there are any updates, but I'd actually suggest we just save those for Monday, even if there were. And agenda item number 9 is school committee community announcements. Anything that folks would like to add right now? Yes, Member Eames.
That library mystery made $13,000.
That's great to hear. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. Item number 10 is future agenda items. Any that folks would like to add at this point? And again, we'll be able to discuss on Monday as well. Yes, Member Heard.
So I know we've talked a lot about goals, and I was hoping hopefully at our next meeting, we can either decide on some like workshop, like a goal workshop or something, or where we're gonna put that, because I think that's something that we need to, obviously, we've kind of all said that, but we've kind of been pushing it for the budget. But I just didn't know if we were planning on doing it along with a regular meeting or doing like a workshop style thing where it's only just like one thing.
Oh, do you want to add that, Member Jensen?
Just what she said.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thinking exactly in line with Member Heard here. Maybe even like a small, not like a whole day or anything, but some kind of small retreat, either like before, during, after a meeting, something like that could work. I mean, a workshop could work too, but a retreat might be a better format. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I'll just tell you. So I did talk to the superintendent about covering that on Monday, as well as the 287 Main Street. Hoping he's nodding his head next to me. So that said, I recognize my hope is that we are able to talk about it on Monday. But again, if we have the feeling that, we really need to kind of separate this out from a regular meeting and have, its own workshop time, we can do that. But I want to at least come back because it has been quite a while, just because of this whole budget process. It has been a while. And I'd like to come back to that conversation first at a regular meeting and go from there. But thank you for bringing that up. Okay, if there is nothing else, then we are set to adjourn. Is there a motion? Yes, Member Heard?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, moved by member Hurd, seconded by member Jensen. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, it is unanimous. We are